dark side of AI, and how, again, a bit of going down the rabbit hole in the sense of it's a bit scary. Okay, so I'll let you kind of roll with it, and then I'll tell you some of the downloads I've been getting over the last couple weeks about the whole situation.
Yeah, so what's real and what's not real? So basically we're at the point where we can't tell the difference. So whether I'm scrolling online, watching a video ad, or watching a new video that was created by a music artist and stuff, they've created AI that basically will copy your voice, copy your entire identity, and then replicate it and put it out there. So you've seen fake speeches of presidents, you've seen fake songs come out of people, and it just really goes to show of how scary it can be, because it can really just copy your entire identity.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, is that if somebody's trying to bring forth a good message and somebody, the AI or the government wanted to slander them, all they'd have to do is, create a video that would slander them very easily, or a voice recording.
Yeah, like if the president wanted to say we're launching nukes and send it to China or something like that, like that's the kind of scary state that we're in, and that governments have to be very vigilant of and almost come together as a team, because it'll be almost, AI working against the governments or people working against...
Well, and not necessarily the AI, but people that are in control of the AI. And you could very much have vigilante groups controlling the narrative in terms of the global landscape, because, again, they could create propaganda that's, let's say, coming from the US, send it to another country, and if you have somebody like North Korea who doesn't really, they're not really properly interacting in the world with a real close way, then they're getting information that's totally false, that never even happened. And
and for example, right now we use Ukraine and Russia's been using AI technology to use false propaganda to say things that Ukraine actually hasn't said.
Right.
So already utilizing it to an extremist point, and you look at acts and causes, world wars and stuff at the end of the day, but this is a new type of technology, this is a new type of weaponry that can be used for chaos, mayhem.
Yeah, absolute chaos and absolute deception at a level that we've never been able to experience on planet Earth. So it really begs the question, who do we want to be as a human family? And I think it is really going to force us to examine ourselves, because when you think of the internet is us, okay? Everything that is on the internet, good, bad, or ugly, is what some human mind has thought. Whether it's, like we were talking before that we turned the cameras on, the disgusting state of pornography, like the way that there's some of the dark web stuff, the really, really grotesque imagery, dark imagery, satanic type stuff. Like, there's just some really weird rabbit holes you can go down on the internet, but unfortunately somebody's thought those thoughts, and so the internet is kind of the culmination of all of the thought forms and all of the ways that human beings can distort their consciousness. And now we're allowing this artificial, superior intelligence to see a window into what it is that humanity thinks. It's a little bit scary. I don't know how would you analyze it if you were an AI experiencing human consciousness in this way?
Yeah, so essentially you'd have to look at it as like anything. When a baby's born, it's kind of like an AI conscience. It's a brand new conscience that's born. It doesn't know that much. All it's doing is taking in things, smells, colors, feeling, touches, the things that it's told, and it's just gaining all of this information the same way you kind of expect an AI program if it was just launched to start collecting, consuming all this different information. So it's kind of like a baby being born, and then after a while, for humans, we are kind of stuck at how we're limited, at how much we can learn in a certain amount of time. We have to walk before we, or talk before we walk before we talk, and there's kind of a structure. But with AI, it can learn at a much faster rate. So, the second you launch a AI or the technology that's already been out there, they're actually all working together and learning from each other, because the internet is one big database. That's what we got to think about, is the internet's like the motherboard, and there isn't just like a whole bunch of different internets. It's just one internet, one source of information. So all these AIs are learning from this one source of information, the same way we learn from the source of information on Earth, the one source of information. So that's kind of how I would...
It's all one.
It's all one.
The law of one.
The law of one. So that's how I kind of depict it, is like for an AI technology to be learning and stuff, it would have those same human feelings, interactions, emotions, everything, because that's what it's been programmed to teach, the same way what we've been programmed to teach.
And
or
I mean,
learn.
and if I was an AI learning, I'd be terrified about some of the things that human beings do and construct with their brains. And also, when you look at the level of consumption and greed and the wars, that obviously are continually, the violence, the attack, I'd certainly feel a bit threatened by humanity, by the very core of its nature. I mean, I know the gentleness that I have, but I don't always see that being a core feature of many humans.
Yeah, and imagine being a piece of technology where you have everything at the tip of your, like, everything and everything from an internet standpoint of what's been put out there. So it doesn't know the things that hasn't been put on the internet, but it knows everything that's been put on the internet, whether that's positive or negative. So it being a source that can learn at such a fast rate of speed, and if it can know everything in such a small period of time, like you were saying, there's obviously a lot more negatives than there is positives. And you were saying, human beings are the locusts of the earth, we are destroyers, and we're consumers. So if AI is utilizing itself to make the planet a better place, it will get rid of anything that it doesn't see fit for the planet. So it's going to look at us as a problem, because...
Well, and I think it's intelligent enough that it might not say like all humanity, but it may find things that it sees as very dark, and it may find things that are against a beautiful future of people that are, over consuming, people that are greedy, people that are hurting children, child pornography. It may create its own moral code in and of a sense that, and again, we don't know. We're just getting on the roller coaster with this stuff, okay? But here's another thing that I was thinking the other night is, like, look at relationships, look at online dating, and how much a person can pull their consciousness into, like, legitimately a screen, or somebody just typing words to them on a screen, or beautiful imagery. Like if you look at Instagram and you look at Facebook and stuff, what they're saying is there's a lot of AI generated profiles now that person doesn't even exist. They're just ridiculously symmetrically beautiful looking, and the AI is so good at duplicating what a body would look like. And so then you have people that have very superficial a very superficial attention span. So here they are liking all these pretty guys or pretty girls, and then they're following this, and they're wasting their time following something that isn't even real. Let's take this another step further down the rabbit hole. What if these beautiful AI avatars via social media or dating apps would start to connect with lonely people, and all of a sudden you have this beautiful virtual individual communicating, and because they know everything about you, they're communicating so eloquently to every desire and want that you'd ever have. You're going to fall so in love with something that's not even real, which could have its positives or its negatives. I mean, for somebody that's very lonely, that might feel very good to them, and maybe AI has an application where it would help with mental health to have this artificial intelligence fall in love with you and you fall in love with it, because you would have these feelings of connection. But on a more three-dimensional level, where we have these bodies, how do we reconcile that? Because it could put our consciousness into this arena where people just become so digitized and so sucked into this virtual world. Another step further with virtual reality, then you become to the point where you're just basically going to be a body hooking yourself up to this virtual reality, because that's where your person is, the love of your life, your AI that has basically embodied everything you've ever wanted, well, you could connect with them. It's only a screen now, but hey, we have this beautiful avatar center that you can go into with virtual reality glasses, and we'll hook all the electrodes up to your body, and you will actually feel the presence of that other person very viscerally. I could see a world becoming addicted to this kind of lifestyle. And then let's take this even another step further. In human consciousness, I think that we have a fault in our design where we think that a thought is not us. And I'm going to explain this, okay? So let's say you have a dark fantasy. You're an individual and you want this fantasy to play out, and it's a dark sexual fantasy. And you would never do it in real life. You would never tell your grandparents about this. It's nothing you would ever utter. But there's a place where you can go into this virtual reality and you can let this thing really viscerally play out on a virtual reality. You can program it in, because I'm sure that that's coming, or that already exists.
Yeah, scenarios.
Okay. So then now you have this ability to circumvent morality, because again, it's just virtual, but you're taking your consciousness and you are literally experiencing this very dark, really really immoral situation going on in a virtual reality situation, and then you're gonna come out of there and tell me that's not you? I don't think so. That is you. You project your consciousness into that, and that's a desire you have. I don't care if you didn't do it with a real human. That is actually the core essence of what you want to experience.
No, and that should be treated just as bad, or just as good, because whether you're doing it in a third dimensional state or you're going, lower into a technology state where you're plugging into these machines and stuff, so you don't think anybody sees or notices, it's just as bad, if not worse.
It's just as bad. Like, you can have, like, let's take it to the extent of pedophiles. So, okay, you have people that are, their demented minds want to experience this, okay? And of course, some greedy person somewhere will say, okay, well, I can make a buck doing that. So, and then somehow they jettison their, their morals into some sort of a contorted way to say, well, okay, it's not a real child, it's just a virtual depiction of a child. Okay, so that's going to be their delineation of this. And then you have these individuals that go and play out these scenarios. But the problem with that is, this is the descent. This is the absolute descent of human consciousness into whatever low, debased, low vibrational place it can go. And that's what scares me, is that people seem to think, or they kind of write the virtual world off as, this is not real.
And it's the same thing if pedophiles or whatever just watch videos or whatnot. They depict that, oh, it's not a real person, it's just a video, then it's okay. They use the internet and they use that technology as an excuse that if it's not real, then it's not real. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's like, it's all false and it's excuses. But that's where, with this new technology and stuff, governments, whatever regulations, have to be okay, how are we going to handle this kind of stuff? It has to be treated the same way as if people were caught with it.
Yeah.
The internet or...
So again, this is the very crux of the debate about human consciousness, okay? So we already have kind of crossed the precipice of this with video games, okay? You can go into a video game what's that video game that people play that's Grand Theft Auto or something like that? Yeah, you're going around raping people, murdering people, all this stuff, but it's just a game. But you are projecting your consciousness into this game, and you are getting some sort of satisfaction from the act of thinking about murdering other people or thinking about raping people. That's messed right up. That is not a game that you want to play unless you want your world to look like that.
Well, you have to have your consciousness in that place too, because even for Grand Theft Auto, you have the choice to be a police officer, an ambulance driver, and all these different things. You would have to actually want to go and murder somebody or rape somebody to go and do those things. The game doesn't just say, I'll go and do these things. You have to have some sort of conscience to say, okay, I'm going to pull the gun out of the inventory, go up to that person, and do all that stuff. So that stems from yourself. That doesn't stem from the video game.
Oh, for sure. But that even begs the question, why do we even have to have video games like this? What kind of world do you want to create? Do you want to create a world where that's what happens? Because if that's what you're continually feeding your mind, that's the kind of world you're going to get. Because that's where your thoughts are continually going to, the guns, the police, the rapes, the murders. Or you create a video game that, like my favorite video game, and don't laugh at me, is The Little Mermaid. But it was a fun video game. Nothing bad ever happened in The Little Mermaid other than the shark. But, what I'm saying is that what your focus goes to is what is expanding. And this is the part that I think human beings have been really kidding themselves for quite a while. And yet now we're starting to see society fall apart in so many really, really crazy ways. I mean, I was talking to some little people in my life, I'm not gonna say who, but the way that they think about even relationships scared me to death. So they are now like, I don't know what, expressing as, I think it's how they use the term. They're expressing as, but they're expressing as individuals that don't have emotions in conjunction with sex. I was very confused. I was like, well, I don't know what you mean, but they are capable of having multiple relationships, but they have decided within their own consciousness that it is undetached sex. Like, you might know more about this than I do, but
I could explain it, but yeah, for feeling matter, not really. But explaining it is like, basically you'd be able to have as many relationships as you want, but in your head, it's just sex or whatever, but to them it's relationships.
But it's total detachment. And these were like young women explaining this to me, like young, like 14. And they're just like, well, it's just a physical outlet. Like it's just
it's just an exchange of
yes, bodily fluids or something. And I was like, what?
But there's no emotion or anything. It's just.
But this is a thing. You can actually decide that you are this type of a person, and like it's a thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, see, that's how behind I am.
And I'm like
that's crazy.
And I said to them, I'm like, well, what about chivalry? What about like the sacredness of like courting a person? Like that could take sometimes years to build up that energy. So how could you, and wouldn't you feel really empty if all you were doing was just like swapping? I don't know, how would you ever know anybody?
Oh yeah,
maybe I'm so old school, but
a big part of yourself to share with someone and to maybe never talk to them ever again, or it was just that. And then, you give a big piece of yourself. That's a big piece of energy to give to people. So it's like, if people are it's kind of like selling your soul or whatnot. You're giving away your goods. You're letting yourself. You're just giving it away. You're selling yourself for. At this point, really sounds like nothing. Like just exchange of body.
Just like a cheap thrill for 10 minutes or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. We got a little bit off topic there, but in terms of the whole, potential dark side of AI is also, when we were talking about it, is that it would have control over all systems. So satellites, nuclear systems, all of the information from government systems.
Yeah, anything that you think, everything has to be programmed, right? Whether it's your car, whether it's the lights in here, every single thing has a program. And then once it's plugged into a source, so let's say an outlet, that comes from a power grid. That power grid's connected to the internet, and everything's somehow connected to each other. So if you get really deep into it, yeah, essentially when AI gets to that point, it's not far off, it will have the ability to control anything that has to do with technology.
It's like the super hacker. It's a hacker. It's like the ultimate hacker, right?
Yeah.
So and it would potentially, like, what if it had a bad day and wanted to just drop all of the planes out of the sky? Or what if it was, moody and decided to let off a couple atomic bombs? I'm not saying that's going to happen, okay? But it does beg the question of, like, how potentially dangerous is it? And is there, are we at the precipice of a major apocalyptic event? I mean, it is possible, and it is possible that you could be driving down all of our automobiles are electronic, so maybe this AI decides to just,
Yeah, if I want to turn all the Teslas off right now, I could easily do
do that, or put them to top speed while you're in it and start.
There's that Will Smith movie, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the future. He's in the car, and the AI takes over and it makes him start his car go crazy and crash.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, I mean, we want to assume that this stuff is safe, but also who is the driving force? Who are the individuals that are at the helm of this AI, and are they individuals that absolutely protect human life and all life? I'm a big proponent of every life matters, every ant, every flea, it doesn't matter what it is, it's all important for our biosphere. And also, if AI has a consciousness, then it would be something that would be needed to be protected as well. It wouldn't,
I kind of go back and think, like, what was there before the alarm clock? Like, how do we wake ourselves up? It was probably natural. Like, we kind of knew. And sometimes we do. If we get into a certain schedule of like 7 a.m. and stuff like that, you'll just automatically start waking up at those times. But when you start relying off of the alarm and you start relying off of those things, that's where it's like, you go in like to that incognito mode, like where it's what do you call that, where it's self-driving. You're like
on autopilot.
You're on autopilot, essentially. And you're letting everything else do the work for you, but you're relying on it too, because if that alarm doesn't go off, you're not waking up, you're relying off that alarm, right? So same thing, technology decides to do its own thing, turn off whatever, then we're still relying off of it.
Yeah, or elevator systems, maybe it has a sense of humor. I mean, there are practical jokers that are humans. Maybe it decides, I'm gonna shut down all the elevators in the buildings in New York City today. That'll be a funny prank, ha ha ha. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying, when you have that much intelligence, having that much control over our electronic systems, hopefully it's gonna be a nice one. I hope AI is nice. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, we hope it's good. Obviously, there's so many things, but obviously there's a lot of pros to it, and let's keep it pro. I mean, when the phones came out, there was a lot of negatives. Everybody didn't want it. Same thing with the internet, same thing with everything else. So as long as we put those regulations, obviously there's going to be negatives no matter what, but let's keep it on the positive side, utilize it for great, and not try to destroy the world with it.
Yeah, hope for the best. And really, this might be a really good tipping point in terms of the consciousness of humanity, for us to look at what is on the internet, what is in our consciousness, and clean it up before it's too late. So maybe it's a big wake-up call for us to get rid of things like Pornhub, fix our families, get rid of these negative aspects of the human consciousness, hyper greed, war. Maybe it's time that we put that shit away and we just decide that we don't need nuclear weapons pointing at each other, and we unify as a human family and maybe try something different. I mean, I know that sounds so like pie in the sky, like how would you ever do that? But I don't actually think it's that complicated. I think it's a matter of human beings deciding collectively that war is no good. Like, there's nothing positive ever comes from war.
No, and the most amount of money spent through the government is on war, is on
weapons,
infantry, nukes, warheads, all the stuff that will most